All right, let's talk about prepositions. You know, those tiny little words that can be a real headache, right? Well, don't worry. In this explainer, we're going to break them all down piece by piece so you can finally get the hang of them. Let's jump right in.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the absolute basics. Then we'll meet the different families of prepositions. After that, we'll get into the really tricky rules, see how they work in real sentences, and then, super important, we'll cover common mistakes and how to prep for your exams.
So, first things first, what is a preposition really? Honestly, the best way to think about it is as the glue that holds your sentences together. It's a small word that connects a noun or pronoun to something else, showing us the relationship, like where something is, when it's happening, or which way it's going. I mean, they're so small, right? How important can they be? Well, it turns out they're absolutely crucial. Without the right preposition, the meaning of your sentence can get totally confused. They are the key to making your writing and speaking both accurate and clear. Okay, so where do you actually put these words? It's pretty simple, actually. A preposition almost always comes right before a noun, a pronoun, or a gerund. And that word that follows it, we call that the object of the preposition. So in this sentence, table is the object of our preposition on. Now, let's meet the preposition family. Instead of trying to memorize a massive, boring list of words, it's way easier to group them by the job they do. We're going to look at 6 main types, and it'll make so much more sense this way. First stop on our tour, prepositions of place. These are super straightforward. They just answer one simple question. Where? Is the cat under the sofa? Is the library next to the park? These little words pinpoint the location for us. And then, of course, we've got prepositions of time. No surprises here. These guys are all about answering the question, when? Did the class happen during the storm? Are we meeting at noon? These words lock our sentences into a specific time frame. Now for the action words. These are the prepositions of movement and direction. They add a sense of journey to our sentences, whether you're going to school, coming from home, or walking through the park. So, how did something happen? Well, prepositions of manner are here to tell us. They add some really nice detail describing the way an action is done. For instance, saying he talks with confidence tells us a lot more than just he talks. Okay, this is a big one, so pay close attention. We use by for the agent, that's the person or thing doing the action, and we use with for the instrument, which is the tool they used. The example here is perfect, written by Shakespeare with a quill. And last but not least, in our family tour, we have the why prepositions. These explain the reason or purpose behind something. He did it for love, she suffers from a headache. They give us that crucial context. Okay, let's dive into some of the trickiest rules, starting with the big 3, in, on, and at for place. The easiest way to remember this is to think of it as container, surface, or point. You are in a box. You put something on a table, and you meet someone at a specific corner. And here's where it gets really interesting. Those exact same 3 words, in, on, and at, have totally different jobs when we're talking about time. We use in for longer periods like months or years, on for specific days and dates, and at for exact, precise times. All right, this is one of those mix-ups I see all the time, but the rule is so simple. Use between when you're talking about just 2 things. Use among when you're talking about a group of 3 or more. That's it. When you're trying to decide between since and for, just ask yourself what you want to talk about. Are you focused on the starting point? Use since. Are you focused on the total length of time? Use for. Remember what we said about the agent and the instrument? This is just putting that into practice again. The artist is the agent, the person doing it, so it's by the artist. The brush is the tool, the instrument, so it's with a brush. It's a really consistent rule. Now this one's a bit subtle, but it's so important. Into is all about movement, the action of entering something. In is about the location after the movement is done. So he jumped into the pool, and a second later, he was swimming in the pool. Action versus location. These two can seem similar, but there's a key difference. Above just means something is at a higher level, but over is more flexible. It can mean higher, sure, but it often suggests covering something, like a blanket over a bed, or crossing from one side to the other. And we see a similar thing with under and below. Under usually means you're right there, directly beneath something, maybe even physically covered by it. Below is a more general term for just being at a lower level or position, like when the temperature is below zero. Okay, we're getting into the pro-level stuff now. In English, some words are just best friends. They always hang out together. You don't listen at music, you listen to it. You believe in something. There's no big grammar rule for this. It's just about learning these common pairs. Yep, it's the same deal with adjectives. They have their favorite preposition partners too. You're good at math, not good in math. You're afraid of spiders. Learning these pairs will make your English sound so much more natural. And you guessed it, nouns get in on this action too. You see these fixed phrases everywhere in English. There's a reason for something. You have a cup of coffee. These are just fundamental building blocks of the language. Sometimes a single word isn't enough. Think of these as little preposition squads. They're a group of words, like in front of or because of, but they work together as one single unit to do one job. All right, let's talk about the mistakes almost everyone makes. If you know what to look for, you can avoid these traps. Most errors fall into one of three buckets. You pick the wrong one, you forget one, or you add one where it doesn't belong. This is a classic example of that third mistake. The verb discuss doesn't need any help from about. You simply discuss the problem. Dropping that extra word makes the sentence stronger and more correct. So some words like but can be a little tricky because they do different jobs. How do you tell them apart? Easy. Look at what comes right after the word. If it's a noun, like Tara, it's a preposition. If it's a whole new thought with a subject and verb, it's a conjunction. And here's another one of those look-alike situations. The secret weapon here? Look for the object. A preposition always has an object, like the kitchen, but an adverb is flying solo. In please come in, the word in just modifies the verb come. No object needed. Okay, exam time. Here's what you need to do to really nail this section. First, really focus on those common word pairs, the collocations. Then, do as many practice exercises as you can, especially the ones where you have to find the error or fill in a blank. And keep those summary charts handy for a final review. But you know, this goes way beyond the classroom. Getting prepositions right makes you a better communicator, period. You need them to give clear directions, to tell a good story. They make everything you say and write more precise and fluent. Okay, let's wrap this all up. If you're going to remember just one thing, make it this chart. Think of it as your ultimate cheat sheet. It's got the most important rules for place, time, and movement all in one spot for a super quick review. So, we've gone through the basics, the types, the tricky rules, and the common mistakes. Now it's your turn. Using what you just learned about movement, what's the best preposition here? The cat jumped onto the table. See? You've got this. Just keep practicing and you'll be a prepositions pro in no time.